Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Uza Harmony, staring at the sealed container in his cargo bay through the security monitor. The thing had been giving him headaches for 3 weeks now. Not just because of the strange sounds coming from inside, but because nobody would tell him what was in it. "Sir, we're getting another transmission from Earth Command," said Ben Torres from his communication station. The young officer looked as confused as Morrison felt. "They want to confirm that the container's life support systems are still running properly." Morrison rubbed his temples. Life support systems for a diplomatic gift? That was a new one in his 20 years of service. "Tell them everything is green, Torres. And ask them again what exactly we're carrying." "I already tried that yesterday." "Sir, they just said it was classified and that coalition leadership would understand when they received it." Dr. Lisa Harper walked onto the bridge carrying her daily report on the mysterious cargo. She was Earth's best xenobiologist, which was why she had been assigned to this mission. Her job was supposed to be analyzing whatever gifts the coalition might send back to Earth. Instead, she had spent 3 weeks trying to figure out what Earth was sending to them. "Any luck with your scans, Doc?" Morrison asked, but Harper shook her head. "The container is shielded, but I can tell there's definitely something alive in there. Multiple life forms, actually. The bio readings are all over the place. Whatever it is, it's active." "Active how?" "Moving, growing, changing. The energy signatures shift every few hours. It's like there's a whole ecosystem in there." She paused and looked at the monitor showing the container. "Captain, I've been thinking about this gift idea." "What if it's not what we think it is?" "What do you mean?" "Well, the coalition species all come from what they call Deathworlds. Planets with extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, dangerous predators. They think Earth is weak because we have nice weather and breathable air. What if this gift is meant to show them something about Earth they don't understand?" Morrison considered this. The Deathworld Coalition had made their opinion of humanity very clear since first contact 6 months ago. They saw humans as another soft species that would need protection in the real galaxy. The coalition was made up of tough species like the Krathak, who evolved on worlds covered in active volcanoes, and the Vorthak, whose home planet was so cold that methane froze solid. "You think Earth Command is trying to prove something?" "Maybe. But what could we send them that would impress species who consider lava flows a nice place for a swim?" Before Morrison could answer, Torres spoke up. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Thanatos Prime. Coalition Traffic Control wants to know our arrival time." Morrison looked at the star chart. Thanatos Prime was the Coalition's capital world, and from what he had read, it lived up to its name. The planet had 3 times Earth's gravity, an atmosphere that would burn human lungs, and surface temperatures that could melt copper. It was exactly the kind of place the Coalition called home. "Tell them we'll be there in 6 hours. And Torres, send a message to Earth Command. Let them know we're about to make delivery." The next few hours passed slowly. Morrison found himself checking on the container more often than he needed to. The sounds coming from inside had changed over the past few days. At first, it had been mostly quiet, with occasional soft noises that the ship's computers couldn't identify. Now there seemed to be more activity. Not louder, exactly, but more constant. "Sir," Harper said, joining him at the monitor, "I've been monitoring the container's internal environment. Whatever is in there, it's adapting to the ship's conditions. The readings I'm getting now are different from when we first loaded it." "Adapting? How?" "I'm not sure. The life signs are stronger, more diverse. It's almost like whatever ecosystem is in there is growing more complex as time goes on." Morrison felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's air conditioning. "Doc, in your professional opinion, is this thing dangerous?" Harper was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, Captain, but I'm starting to think that might be the point." Thanatos Prime appeared on the main screen as they dropped out of hyperspace. The planet looked exactly as hostile as Morrison had expected. The surface was a mix of black rock and red-hot lava flows. Massive storms swirled through an atmosphere that glowed with volcanic ash. It was the kind of world that would kill a human in seconds without protection. Coalition fleet coming into sensor range, Torres reported. 12 ships, all heavy cruisers. They're not taking any chances with us. Morrison wasn't surprised. The Coalition had agreed to this meeting, but they still didn't trust humanity. As far as they were concerned, humans were just another weak species trying to play politics in a galaxy where only the strong survived. Open a channel to the lead ship. The screen filled with the image of War Speaker Kethver, a Krethek military leader whose species looked like walking chunks of volcanic rock. His skin was black and red, with glowing cracks running through it like cooling lava. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding stone. Human vessel, you will follow our ships to the designated landing area. Do not deviate from the flight path. Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction. Understood, War Speaker, Morrison replied. We're here for peaceful diplomatic exchange, as agreed. Kethver's expression didn't change. We shall see. What manner of gift does your soft world offer to the Coalition? Morrison had been dreading this question. A cultural exchange item, as requested. Something that will help you understand Earth better. Indeed. We are curious to see what your fragile species considers worthy of our attention. The landing took place in a heavily shielded facility on Thanatos Prime's surface. Morrison and his team had to wear full environmental suits just to survive in the planet's atmosphere. Even through the suit's protection, he could feel the intense heat and crushing gravity. The Coalition Reception Committee was impressive and intimidating. Besides War Speaker Kethver, there were several other species Morrison recognized from the diplomatic files. Dr. Zexthal of the Vorthak, whose crystalline body gleamed with cold blue light. Security Chief Grondar, another Krethek whose scars told stories of battles on a dozen different worlds. So, Kethver said as human and Coalition personnel worked together to move the container from the ship, this is Earth's great gift to the Coalition. It appears to be nothing more than a simple cargo container. The gift is inside, Morrison said, along with instructions for proper handling. Dr. Zexthal moved closer to the container, his multiple arms waving sensors over its surface. Curious. There are indeed life signs within. What manner of creature has your world sent us? Morrison handed over a sealed data pad. These are the handling instructions. Earth Command was very specific that they should be followed exactly. Kethver took the pad and glanced at it briefly. His expression became even more contemptuous than before. Do not open under any circumstances? Deliver to qualified xenobiology team? What manner of dangerous predator requires such caution that even warriors of the Coalition must be warned? I honestly don't know, War Speaker. My orders were simply to deliver the container intact. Then you have completed your mission, human. You may depart. Morrison hesitated. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. The secrecy, the warnings, the way Earth Command had insisted on this particular gift. War Speaker, if I may suggest, you may not? Kethver's voice was final. The Coalition has received gifts from dozens of species seeking our favor. We are quite capable of handling whatever soft creature your world has provided. As Morrison and his team prepared to leave, he caught Dr. Harper looking back at the container with obvious worry. Captain, she said quietly over their suit communicators, I really think we should warn them more specifically. About what? We don't even know what's in there ourselves. That's exactly what worries me. The last thing Morrison saw as their ship lifted off from Thanatos Prime was the container being moved into what looked like the Coalition's most secure research facility. For some reason that didn't make him feel any better. As the UES Harmony jumped back into hyperspace, heading for Earth, Morrison found himself thinking about Dr. Harper's words. What could Earth possibly send to a coalition of Deathworld species that would mean anything to them? What did humanity have that beings who lived on lava worlds and frozen methane planets would find impressive? 3 days later, as they approached Earth's solar system, Torres received a priority message from Earth Command. Morrison read it twice before he understood what it was telling him. Sir? Torres asked. What does it say? Morrison looked at the message again. It was short and to the point. Package delivered successfully. Monitor Coalition communications for reaction. Do not be surprised by what you hear. I think, Morrison said slowly, we just delivered something a lot more significant than anyone told us. He was right, but he wouldn't understand just how right until the reports started coming in from Thanatos Prime. By then, it would be too late for the Coalition to change their minds about opening Earth's gift. Dr. Zexthel walked through the corridors of Research Complex Alpha, his crystalline body reflecting the harsh blue lights that lined the walls. 3 days had passed since the humans delivered their mysterious gift, and the Coalition's most advanced xenobiology team was finally ready to examine it properly. The container sat in the center of Containment Lab 7, surrounded by the most sophisticated scanning equipment the Coalition had ever built. The lab itself was a marvel of engineering, designed to handle the most dangerous life forms from across Coalition space. Its walls were made of compressed neutronium, and its atmosphere could be changed to match any known planetary environment. In seconds. Status report, Dr. Zexthel said to his team as he entered the lab. Junior researcher Velmer, a young Vorthak whose crystalline structure still showed the blue-white coloring of inexperience, looked up from his scanner readings. The container's internal environment remains stable, Doctor. Earth normal atmosphere, temperature at 22 degrees Celsius, humidity at 60%. Dr. Zexthel made a sound that was the Vorthic equivalent of laughter. How charmingly primitive. The humans require such gentle conditions for their life forms. I am almost embarrassed for them. Dr. Nixara, a Krethak xenobiologist whose rocky skin showed the scars of studying dangerous specimens, approached with her preliminary scans. The biosignatures are definitely complex, but nothing we haven't seen before. Multiple life forms, but they all appear to be very small, microscopic mostly. Microscopic? Dr. Zexthel's tone showed his disappointment. The humans send us microbes as a diplomatic gift? How ... Underwhelming. Security Chief Grondar stood near the lab's entrance, his massive frame casting shadows across the floor. Even for a Krethak, he was unusually large, his volcanic rock skin glowing with internal heat. Perhaps this is some kind of insult, he growled. The soft-worlders mock us with their tiny creatures. Or perhaps, said Dr. Nixara, they simply do not understand what constitutes a proper gift between warrior species. Dr. Zexthel moved closer to the container, his multiple arms extending sensors toward its surface. The energy readings are ... unusual. There is definitely organized activity within. But what could microorganisms possibly do that would interest the Coalition? Velmer cleared his throat nervously. Doctor, I've been analyzing the quantum signatures from inside the container. There's something strange about them. The life forms appear to be interacting in ways I haven't seen before. Interacting how? They seem to be communicating with each other. Chemical signals, electrical impulses, even what might be primitive cooperation behaviors. But the patterns are incredibly complex, more complex than anything in our databases. Dr. Zexthel dismissed this with a wave of his arms. Microorganisms often display simple cooperative behaviors. This is not remarkable, but Doctor, these patterns aren't simple. They're showing coordination levels that rival some of our member species' basic communication systems. Dr. Nixara looked at her own readings again. The junior researcher may have a point. I'm seeing organized structures within the container. Not just random biological activity, but what appears to be systematic behavior. Security Chief Grondar moved closer to the group. Are you saying these tiny creatures pose some kind of threat? Threat? Dr. Zexthel laughed again. From microbes that require such gentle conditions to survive? Chief, our planet's surface atmosphere would kill them in microseconds. We have nothing to fear from Earth's fragile life forms. But Velmer wasn't convinced. Doctor, I really think we should be more careful. These readings don't match anything. In our experience, the complexity levels are off the charts. Your inexperience is showing, young one, Dr. Zexthel said, though not unkindly. You are seeing patterns where none exist because you want to find something significant. But sometimes A gift is simply a gift, even if it is a disappointing one? Dr. Nixara had been studying the human instruction manual while the others talked. The warnings in this document are quite specific. Do not open under any circumstances. Requires immediate containment protocols. Contact Earth immediately. If containment is breached, typical human overcaution, Security Chief Grondar said. They probably think their microbes are dangerous because they've never encountered real predators. Still, Dr. Nixara said, perhaps we should follow their protocols at least initially. Dr. Zexthal considered this. The humans had been specific about their warnings, but they had also been maddeningly vague about what the container actually held. How could any coalition scientist be expected to study a specimen without proper examination? We are the coalition's finest xenobiology team, he decided. We have studied life forms from the most dangerous worlds in known space. We will not be deterred by human anxieties about their own fragile biology. He moved to the container's control panel and began entering the unlock sequence. Containment Lab 7 has held specimens that could survive in the hearts of stars. I think we can manage whatever delicate creatures Earth has provided. The container seals began to release with a soft hissing sound. The coalition scientists gathered around, their various sensory organs focused on the opening. Even Security Chief Grondar moved closer, his curiosity overcoming his usual caution. The first thing they saw was dirt. Plain, brown, ordinary-looking soil. It sat in the container like a small section of forest floor, complete with fallen leaves, small twigs, and what appeared to be a few simple plants. This is their gift? Dr. Nixara asked, her voice showing her disbelief. Dirt? Dr. Zexthal extended a sensor probe toward the soil sample. It appears to be a standard terrestrial ecosystem sample. Soil, decomposing organic matter, simple plant life, nothing remarkable. Security Chief Grondar's laughter rumbled through the lab like distant thunder. The humans have sent us a handful of dirt as a diplomatic gift. This is either the greatest insult in galactic history or the most pathetic attempt at diplomacy ever recorded. But Velmar was watching his instruments with growing alarm. Doctor, the quantum signatures are spiking. Whatever is in that soil, it's becoming much more active now that it's been exposed to our lab environment. Of course it is, Dr. Zexthal said dismissively. The change in environmental conditions has stimulated the microorganisms. Perfectly normal biological response. But doctor, look at the activity patterns. They're not random. The organisms are moving in coordinated groups, following specific chemical trails, establishing what looks like territorial boundaries. Dr. Nixara was now studying her own readings with increasing concern. He's right. The soil isn't just sitting there, it's organizing itself. The microorganisms are creating structures, networks, communication pathways. Impossible, Dr. Zexthal said, but his tone was less certain now. Simple soil microbes cannot display such sophisticated behavior. These aren't simple microbes, Velmer said, his voice rising with excitement and fear. Doctor, I'm reading thousands of different species in this sample. Maybe tens of thousands? And they're all working together in some kind of coordinated ecosystem. Security Chief Grondar moved closer to the container, his enhanced vision allowing him to see details the others missed. There is movement in the soil, visible movement. Small creatures, but they are definitely active. Dr. Zexthal finally looked at his own readings with the attention they deserved. What he saw made his crystalline structure pulse with alarm. The soil sample was indeed teeming with life, but not just any life. Every cubic centimeter contained dozens of different species, all interacting in complex webs of predation, cooperation, and competition. This is not possible, he whispered. No planetary ecosystem could support this level of biodiversity in such a small space. Doctor, Velmer said, his voice now showing real fear, I think we need to seal the container immediately. The organisms are beginning to interact with our lab environment. They're sending out chemical probes, testing our air, our surfaces. Dr. Nixara was backing away from the container. The humans weren't overcautious. They were trying to protect us, but it was too late. The Earth soil had been exposed to the Coalition's most advanced laboratory, and it was doing what Earth life did best, adapting, exploring, and finding ways to survive and thrive in any environment it encountered. The screaming started when Dr. Zexthel realized that the soil sample wasn't just sitting in the container anymore. It was slowly, systematically, beginning to convert the lab surfaces into nutrients for its own growth, and it was accelerating. Containment breach. Security Chief Grondar roared, reaching for the emergency alarm. Full laboratory lockdown. Nobody leaves this room. But as the alarms began to wail throughout Research Complex Alpha, all 4 Coalition scientists realized the same terrifying truth. They weren't dealing with a simple biological sample. They were dealing with Earth itself, concentrated into a single container and unleashed in their most secure facility. The gift wasn't meant to impress them. It was meant to educate them, and the lesson was just beginning. The alarms in Research Complex Alpha had been wailing for 6 hours straight. Security Chief Grondar stood in the command center, watching dozens of screens that showed the same impossible thing happening over and over again. The Earth soil was eating their facility. Status report, he demanded from the emergency response team that had gathered around him. Dr. Lisa Carter, the Coalition's leading expert in dangerous biology, looked up from her readings with exhaustion and fear in her eyes. The spread has accelerated beyond all our models, Chief. The organisms have somehow broken through the neutronium barriers of Containment Lab 7 and are now affecting the entire 7th level of the complex. That's impossible. Those barriers can withstand direct hits from plasma cannons. The Earth organisms aren't breaking the barriers, Chief. They're dissolving them, converting the neutronium into compounds they can use for growth and expansion. Grondar felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career: helplessness. How can microorganisms dissolve neutronium? We don't know. But they're doing it systematically, level by level. They're not just randomly destroying things. They're converting our entire facility into an environment suitable for their own growth. Dr. Zexthel's voice came over the communication system from Emergency Lab 12, where he and the remaining xenobiology team had retreated. Chief, you need to see what we've discovered about these organisms. They're not behaving like anything in our databases. Explain. They're cooperating at levels we thought were impossible for life forms this small. The bacteria are creating chemical pathways for the fungi. The fungi are breaking down materials and leaving nutrients for other organisms. Everything is working together like a single massive organism. Dr. Carter added her own observations. It's worse than that, Chief. They're learning. The organisms that first encountered our lab materials died as expected. But within hours, new variants had evolved that could not only survive contact with our technology, but actually thrive on it. Evolved in hours? Earth organisms reproduce incredibly fast. Some of the bacteria in that soil can create new generations every 20 minutes. With that kind of reproduction rate, they can evolve in real time to meet new challenges. Grondar watched the monitors as more sections of Level 7 disappeared under a growing mass of brown organic material. The Earth soil had expanded to fill 3 entire laboratory sections, and it showed no signs of slowing down. What about our containment procedures? Gas attacks? Radiation? Dr. Carter shook her head. We tried everything, Chief. Chemical agents just seem to feed them. Radiation makes them reproduce faster. Heat and cold don't affect them at all. It's like they've already encountered every extreme condition we can create. That's impossible. Earth is supposed to be a gentle world. I don't think Earth is as gentle as we assumed. Dr. Nixara's voice joined the conversation from her position in Emergency Lab 15. Chief, I've been analyzing the original soil sample's composition. Do you know how many different species were contained in that single container? How many? Over 50,000 that we can identify. And that's just the ones big enough for our instruments to detect. There could be millions of microscopic species we can't even see. Grondar tried to process this information. 50,000 species in a container the size of a shipping crate. His own homeworld, considered one of the most biologically diverse, in Coalition space had fewer than 10,000 species on the entire planet. But they're all microorganisms, correct? Small, simple life forms? No, Chief, that's what we thought at first, but we were wrong. Some of these organisms are incredibly complex. They have behaviors and abilities that rival our most advanced biotechnology. Young researcher Velmer, who had tried to warn the team earlier, spoke up from his monitoring station. Chief, I'm tracking the expansion pattern. The Earth organisms aren't just spreading randomly. They're following our air circulation systems, our power conduits, our data cables. They're using our own infrastructure to guide their growth. You're saying they understand our technology? I'm saying they're smarter than we gave them credit for, much smarter. Dr. Zexthel's voice returned with a new level of urgency. Chief, we have a bigger problem. The organisms have reached the facility's main power core. They're not just feeding on it, they're integrating with it. What does that mean? It means they're learning to use our power systems for their own purposes. The energy consumption in the affected areas has increased by 400%, but instead of overloading the systems, the organisms seem to be optimizing them. Dr. Carter looked at her readings with growing amazement and horror. They're not just consuming our facility, Chief, they're improving it. The air quality in the affected areas is actually better than in the rest of the complex. The temperature is more stable. They're creating a more efficient environment. More efficient for what? For life. For their kind of life. Grondar realized that they were dealing with something completely outside their experience. Coalition. Species had evolved on harsh worlds where survival meant becoming tough, resistant, and individually powerful. But Earth's organisms had evolved differently. They had become cooperative, adaptive, and incredibly efficient at working together. Options? He demanded. What can we do to stop this? Dr. Carter consulted with her team before answering. Honestly, Chief, I'm not sure we can stop it. Every countermeasure we've tried has either failed or actually helped them spread faster. There must be something. No organism is invincible. These aren't just organisms, Chief. This is an entire ecosystem. And it's been refined by billions of years of evolution on a world where cooperation and competition have reached levels we never imagined. Dr. Zextel added his analysis. Chief, I've been studying Earth's biological data that the humans provided with their diplomatic materials. Do you know what the average handful of Earth soil contains? Enlighten me. More living organisms than there are stars in our local galactic cluster. More genetic diversity than exists on most coalition member worlds. More complex chemical interactions than our best scientists can fully understand. You're saying this handful of dirt is more complex than entire planets? I'm saying this handful of dirt is more complex than our entire civilization. The reality of their situation began to sink. In for Grondar, the humans hadn't sent them a simple gift. They had sent them a demonstration of what Earth was really like. Not a gentle world populated by weak creatures, but a world where life had become so successful, so competitive, and so cooperative that it had created an environment more challenging than anything the Coalition had ever encountered. Sir, Velmer called out, I'm getting reports from other levels of the complex. The organisms have found the ventilation systems. They're spreading to levels 8 and 6. And they're not just spreading, Dr. Nixara added. They're establishing permanent colonies, creating stable ecosystems in areas that should be completely hostile to Earth life. Dr. Carter was studying the expansion patterns on her screens. Chief, at this rate, the entire research complex will be converted within 72 hours. Converted to what? Into something that looks more like Earth than Thanatos Prime. Grondar made a decision that went against every instinct he had developed in his military career. Evacuate all personnel from the complex, seal it completely, and get me a direct communication link to Earth. Sir, we need to talk to the humans. We need to understand what they've done to us. Dr. Zextel's voice came over the com with a tone of defeated amazement. Chief, I don't think they've done anything to us. I think they've shown us what they live with every single day. As Grondar watched the monitors showing Earth life systematically converting coalition technology into something unrecognizable, he began to understand the true genius of humanity's gift. They hadn't sent the coalition their most dangerous organisms. They had sent them their most common ones, the organisms that human children played in every day, the soil that humans walked on without protection, the life forms that humans considered so normal that they barely thought about them, and those harmless organisms were casually dismantling one of the coalition's most secure facilities like it was made of paper. Get me that communication link. To Earth, Grondar repeated. Now? He had a feeling that the coalition's understanding of what constituted a dangerous world was about to change forever. War Speaker Kethver stood in the coalition's emergency command center, his volcanic rock skin glowing brighter with anger than anyone had seen in decades. The holographic display in front of him showed the complete loss of Research Complex Alpha. 3 days ago, it had been one of the most secure facilities in coalition space. Now it was something else entirely. Get me the human admiral, he commanded. Now. The communication officer, a nervous young Krethek named Durthak, worked frantically at his controls. Sir, we're establishing a connection with Earth's deep. Space Command? Admiral Pete Richardson is accepting the call. The holographic display shifted to show a middle-aged human sitting calmly in what appeared to be a simple office. Richardson looked relaxed, almost peaceful, which only made Kethver angrier. Admiral Richardson, Kethver began, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. Your people have committed an act of biological warfare against the coalition. We demand an immediate explanation. Richardson's expression didn't change. War Speaker, I assure you that Earth has not committed any act of warfare against the coalition. We delivered exactly what we promised, a cultural exchange gift that would help you understand what Earth is really like. You call this a gift? Kethver gestured at the screen showing the transformed research complex. Your organisms have consumed an entire facility. They have converted coalition technology into something unrecognizable. Have they hurt anyone? The question caught Kethver off guard. What? Have the organisms from our gift hurt any of your people? Injured anyone? Caused any deaths? Security Chief Grondar stepped forward. Well, no. But they have destroyed billions of credits worth of equipment and made an entire facility uninhabitable. Richardson nodded calmly. Uninhabitable by your standards, perhaps. But I'm willing to bet that the facility is now more habitable than it was before. Better air quality, more stable temperature, more efficient resource usage. Dr. Zexthal, who had been monitoring the conversation from his emergency lab, spoke up. How did you know that? Because that's what Earth life does, Doctor. It finds ways to make environments more suitable for life. All life, not just its own? War Speaker Kethver felt his anger building. You speak as if this was intentional. As if you knew what would happen when we opened your container. We knew exactly what would happen, War Speaker. We've been living with these organisms for our entire evolutionary history. We understand them better than you understand your own technology. Dr. Nixara joined the conversation from her evacuation post. Admiral, the organisms in your gift are unlike anything in our databases. They display cooperation levels that we thought were impossible. Doctor, may I ask what you know about Earth's biological history? Only what your diplomatic materials provided. Earth is a Class M world with moderate climate conditions and standard biological diversity. Richardson smiled, and somehow that smile was more frightening than any threat the coalition had ever faced. Dr. Earth has more biological diversity in a single forest than most worlds have on their entire surface. What you call standard is actually the result of the most competitive biological environment the galaxy has ever produced. Competitive? But your organisms cooperate. They do both, Doctor. On Earth, cooperation is a survival strategy. Our organisms learned billions of years ago that working together was the best way to survive in an environment where everything is trying to eat everything else. Dr. Zexthal's voice showed his growing understanding. You're saying that Earth's cooperation is the result of extreme competition? I'm saying that Earth's cooperation is so advanced because our competition is so intense. Every cubic centimeter of our soil contains more predator-prey relationships than most worlds have in their entire biosphere. Security Chief Grondar stepped closer to the communication display. Admiral, our scans show that your gift contained over 50,000 different species. How is that possible in such a small space? Chief, 50,000 is probably an underestimate. Earth soil typically contains millions of species, most of them microscopic. What we sent you was actually a very simple sample, just basic forest floor soil with the most common organisms. The most common? Chief, the organisms that are currently converting your facility are what human children play in every day. They're what we call dirt. We walk on them, we grow our food in them, we barely think about them. The Coalition Command Center fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. War Speaker Kethver was the first to speak. You're telling us that what we consider to be an unstoppable biological force is something your children play in. War Speaker, human children build sandcastles and environments that would challenge your most advanced military units. They swim in water that contains more predators than most coalition worlds have in their entire oceans. They breathe air that is so saturated with life forms that it would overwhelm your filtration systems. Dr. Zexthel was frantically checking his data. Admiral, according to our analysis, the organisms in your gift can survive in environments ranging from near freezing to near boiling. They can process almost any chemical compound for nutrition. They can adapt to new conditions in hours. That's correct, Doctor. Earth life has been dealing with extreme conditions for so long that what you consider extreme, we consider normal. Variations, but Earth is supposed to be a gentle world. Richardson's expression became more serious. Doctor, Earth is gentle compared to what it used to be. Our planet has survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and atmospheric changes that would sterilize most worlds. The life forms that survived all of that are not what you would call gentle. Dr. Nixara was studying her. Readings with new eyes. Admiral, the organisms are not just surviving in our facility, they're thriving. They're creating more complex ecosystems than we've ever seen. That's because they're finally free to do what they do best, Doctor. On Earth, they're constantly competing with millions of other species for resources. In your facility, they have room to expand and build without that competition. War Speaker Kethver felt something he had never experienced before: humility. Admiral, when we first met your species, we assumed you were weak because you come from a world with comfortable conditions. And now? Now I'm beginning to understand that we may have misunderstood what makes a world dangerous, Richardson nodded. War Speaker, the coalition species evolved on worlds with harsh physical conditions? You became strong by resisting your environment. Earth life evolved differently. We became strong by cooperating with our environment and with each other. But the result is the same, Security Chief Grondar said. Your organisms are more adaptable than anything we've encountered. Chief, Earth organisms have been adapting to challenges for 4 billion years. Every day on Earth is a struggle between millions of species, all trying to survive and thrive. The organisms in our gift have been through evolutionary pressures that would destroy most civilizations. Dr. Zexthel was beginning to understand the full scope of what they were dealing with. Admiral, you're telling us that Earth is not a gentle world at all. It's a world where life itself has become the ultimate challenge. Dr. Earth is the kind of world where cooperation and competition have reached such advanced levels that we produce ecosystems more complex than most species' entire technologies. And humans live in this environment without protection? Doctor, humans evolved in this environment. We're not separate from it, we're part of it. Every human carries billions of Earth organisms in their body, working together to keep us alive. The Coalition Command Center fell silent again as they processed this information. Finally, War Speaker Kethver spoke. Admiral, what do you want from us? Nothing, War Speaker. This was truly a gift. We wanted you to understand what Earth is really like. We wanted you to see that there are different kinds of strength in the galaxy, and if we had not opened the container, Richardson smiled again, then you would have missed the chance to learn something important about the universe. The organisms would have been fine. They can survive in that container for years if necessary, but now that we have opened it, now you have a choice, War Speaker. You can try to fight Earth life, which I don't recommend, or you can try to understand it and work with it. Work with it? War Speaker, the organisms in your facility aren't trying to hurt you. They're trying to create a better environment for all life. If you let them, they might teach you things about cooperation that could benefit the entire coalition. As the communication ended, War Speaker Kethver looked at the screens showing the transformed research complex. The facility was no longer recognizable as coalition technology, but it was undeniably alive, vibrant, and beautiful in a way that nothing on Thanatos Prime had ever been. For the first time in his life, he wondered if strength came not from resisting life, but from embracing it. 6 months had passed since the humans delivered their gift to the coalition, and Thanatos Prime had become something that no one in coalition history had ever imagined. War Speaker Kethver stood at the observation deck of the newly constructed research station, looking down at what had once been Research Complex Alpha. The facility was unrecognizable. Where once there had been harsh metal and stone structures designed to withstand the planet's brutal conditions, there was now something that looked almost like a garden. Green plants that should not exist on Thanatos Prime grew alongside the original volcanic rock. The air in that 3-kilometer area was clean and breathable, even for species that normally required environmental suits on the planet's surface. The latest reports, War Speaker, said Dr. Nixara, approaching with a datapad in her hands. She looked different now, healthier somehow. The coalition scientists who worked in the Terran Zone, as they had come to call it, all seemed to show similar improvements. What do the studies show? Kethver asked. The Earth organisms have established what they call a stable ecosystem. They're not expanding beyond the original boundaries they set 6 months ago, but within those boundaries they've created something remarkable. Kethver took the datapad and reviewed the information. The readings were still hard to believe, even after months of evidence. The air quality is actually better than our filtration systems produce. Much better. The Earth organisms have created a natural air processing system that removes toxins more efficiently than anything we've ever built. They've also stabilized the temperature and humidity to levels that are comfortable for most coalition species. And they did this while living on a world that should be completely hostile to them. Dr. Nixara nodded. That's what makes it so remarkable, War Speaker. They didn't just survive on Thanatos Prime. They made it livable for everyone else, too. Young researcher Velmor, who had been promoted after his early warnings about the Earth organisms proved correct, joined them at the observation deck. War Speaker, we have a delegation of human scientists requesting permission to visit the Terran Zone. For what purpose? They want to study how Earth life has adapted to our world. Apparently, they're as curious about the results as we are. Kethver considered this request. Relations between the Coalition and humanity had changed dramatically since the gift incident. The Coalition no longer saw humans as weak creatures from a soft world. Instead, they had begun to understand that humans represented something entirely different from anything they had encountered before. Approve their request, he decided. But I want to meet with their team leader personally. 2 days later, Kethver found himself in the strangest situation of his military career. He was standing in the Terran Zone without any environmental protection, breathing air that had been processed by Earth organisms, surrounded by plants that were somehow thriving in Thanatos Prime's harsh climate. Dr. Susan Blake, the leader of the human science team, was a small woman who looked fragile by coalition standards. But Kethver had learned not to judge humans by their appearance. She was examining soil samples with the same casual attitude that coalition warriors showed when handling weapons. This is fascinating, Dr. Blake said, holding up a handful of dirt that contained more life than most coalition worlds. The organisms have created hybrid ecosystems using both Earth life and native Thanatos prime minerals. I've never seen anything like it. Is this normal behavior for Earth organisms? Kethver asked. Oh yes, completely normal. Earth life is incredibly good at adapting to new environments and finding ways to work with local conditions. What's unusual is having a clean environment to work in. Clean? Dr. Blake smiled. War speaker, on Earth, these organisms are constantly competing with millions of other species for every resource. Here, they have space to really show what they can do when they're not under constant biological pressure. Dr. Zexthel, who had been working in the Terran zone for months now, approached their group. His crystalline structure had taken on new colors since he began working with Earth life, blues and greens that had never been seen in Vorthak biology before. Dr. Blake, he said, I've been studying the cooperation patterns of the Earth organisms. They seem to be deliberately creating conditions that benefit other life forms, not just themselves. That's right, Dr. Zexthel. On Earth, we call that symbiosis. Our organisms learned long ago that helping other life forms survive often helps them survive too. But this level of cooperation, it's more advanced than most of our member species achieve. Dr. Blake nodded. Dr. Earth organisms have been practicing cooperation for billions of years. They've had time to perfect it. Security Chief Grondar joined the group, and Kethver noticed that he too looked different. The massive Krayfek warrior seemed more relaxed, less aggressive than he had been before the Terran zone was established. Dr. Blake, Grondar said, my security teams have been monitoring the zone for 6 months. The organisms have never shown any hostile behavior toward Coalition personnel. Is this normal? Chief, Earth organisms generally aren't hostile unless they're threatened or competing for resources. Since you've given them everything they need and haven't tried to harm them, they have no reason to be aggressive. But they're capable of aggressive behavior? Dr. Blake's expression became more serious. Chief, Earth organisms are capable of levels of biological warfare that would terrify most civilizations. But they only use those capabilities when necessary for survival. Kethver thought about this. Dr. Blake, when your people sent us this gift, did you know what would happen? War Speaker, we knew that Earth organisms would adapt to your environment and establish a stable ecosystem. We hoped that seeing them in action would help you understand what Earth is really like. And what is Earth really like? Dr. Blake looked around the Terran zone at the impossible garden that Earth life had created on one of the galaxy's most hostile worlds. War Speaker, Earth is a world where life has become so successful, so cooperative, and so competitive that it has created environments more challenging than anything most species can imagine. Yet humans live there without protection. We don't live there despite the challenges, War Speaker. We live there because of them. Those challenges made us what we are. Dr. Nixara approached with her latest research findings. Dr. Blake, I've been analyzing the genetic adaptations the Earth organisms have made since arriving here. Some of them have developed new capabilities in just 6 months. That's not surprising, Doctor. Earth life adapts quickly when it encounters new challenges. What kind of new capabilities? They've learned to process Thanatos Prime's unique mineral compositions. They're creating compounds that we've never seen before, substances that seem to be beneficial for both Earth and Coalition biology. Dr. Blake examined the samples with interest. They're creating hybrid biochemistries. That's actually quite advanced, even for Earth organisms. Velmor spoke up from his monitoring station. Dr. Blake, the organisms seem to be actively trying to create conditions that support Coalition life forms too. Why would they do that? Because that's what Earth life does, Velmor. It creates conditions that support as much life as possible. The more life there is, the more stable the ecosystem becomes. Kethver was beginning to understand something fundamental about the difference between Coalition and Earth approaches to survival. Dr. Blake, Coalition species survived by becoming stronger than their environments. But Earth life survived by making their environment stronger? That's a very good way to put it, War Speaker. Earth life learned that the best way to survive was to create environments where everything could thrive. And humans are part of this system? Humans are products of this system, War Speaker. We carry Earth organisms in our bodies, we depend on them for survival, and they depend on us. We're not separate from Earth life, we're part of it. As the day continued, Kethver watched Coalition scientists working alongside human researchers. In the Terran Zone, both groups were learning from each other, sharing knowledge and perspectives that neither could have developed alone that evening. As he prepared his report for the Coalition Council, Kethver realized that the humans' gift had accomplished something no military victory ever could. It had changed how the Coalition understood strength, survival, and what it meant to be truly powerful in a dangerous galaxy. The screaming had stopped months ago. The fear had been replaced by curiosity, and the curiosity had led to understanding. The Coalition had learned that there were many ways to be strong, and that cooperation could be more powerful than competition. Most importantly, they had learned that humanity's gift was not just a sample of Earth life. It was an invitation to see the galaxy from a completely different perspective, one where strength came not from resisting life, but from embracing it and helping it flourish. The Terran Zone remained on Thanatos Prime as a permanent reminder of what was possible when different forms of life worked together. And in the Coalition Council chambers, human representatives now sat as equals among species that had once considered them weak. The gift had been delivered, and its message was finally understood.